Gosh, how are we doing? How many people has had an amazing week? And again, I've been seeing it every day. It's a cliche, but oh my God, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for this weather over Oshkosh the entire week. How many AirVenture rookies here? This is your first AirVenture. Okay. All right. Well, from now on, you're grizzled veterans. That's your story, and you stick to it. Okay. How many people have made it to more than 5 of these Warbirds in review this week? Oh, gotta love you. Thank you so much. Well, hello. We come to the end of the week, which none of us can believe. My name is Chip Berger. I'm the voice of the Warbirds Living History Group. Warbirds Living History Group is a group of living historians, reenactors, amateur historians. We have a camp right over yonder. Look for the large number of large olive drab canvas tents, or just close your eyes and follow your nose of the mildewy, musty canvas cell, and you will find us. Please come see us so we can show you some of the equipment, gear, accoutrements, vehicles that we have over the time period, including some of the stuff that you see the gentleman behind me today. We'll get to them in a bit. So we've come to the end of the week, and we're talking about the Tuskegee Airmen. And looks like we've got a plane that they trained in stateside, big, beautiful AT-6 from North American. And we have ourselves a pilot who would have trained in one of these, but would have fought in fighter planes like the P-51 Mustang or the famous Red Tails. So let's take a look. Things we have to have as far as equipment of a pilot at a time period. Got to keep him warm. You got to keep him breathing because he's flying up where the bombers are, which is 25,000, 30,000 feet. And he's got to be able to communicate with the rest of his squadron, the rest of his group, and home base. So let's see how we accomplish that in equipping the American flying man of 1943, 44, 45. So top to bottom on his head, on his noggin, this pilot is wearing a flight helmet, leather flight helmet. This is an RAF design, which was very popular with the American fighter pilots. You see a lot of photographs. If you look at American fighter pilots of that era, and in the European and Mediterranean theater of operations, they chose this because of its comfort. What they would do is they would just replace out the avionics with the American ones. But these rubber donuts here did a very good job of holding the receivers in. It's comfortable. It's a good cut. It's a good shape. It's also versatile in terms of all the different hooks it has on it. To protect his vision, on the top of that, he is wearing also of an RAF design. This is the famous Mark 8, kind of an iconic design. You can see the little angled glass. There's a couple different versions of the RAF goggles of that time period that have that. And again, kind of a personal preference within a squadron, you would probably see a mix of different helmets and goggle types just based on what the pilot liked and what they thought were most effective in the combat, in the cockpit, fighting up at altitude. Speaking of altitude, again, This is an escort fighter. He's flying escort fighters like the Mustang, escorting B-17s and B-24s as they hit their targets from 24, 28, 30,000 feet. And above 10,000 feet, air is very, very thin. You will pass out in minutes, and you'll be dead minutes of that after that from an oxygen. So we need to provide him with an oxygen source. There are oxygen tanks in the plane that feed an oxygen system that he has right here. This is the A-14 mask. It's kind of the oxygen mask that the Army Air Force and later the Air Force and most of the forces standardized on. Modern oxygen masks that the jet pilots and all branches of the service use today are kind of derivative of this design. It was in manufacture for a good long time. And if you open it up, you can see, you can turn it around there, there's a valve inside there. It's a demand mask, unlike some of the supply masks early in the war, like, say, like the Spitfire pilots wore during the Battle of Britain. You inhale, it opens up the valve, brings in oxygen from the tanks in the plane. When he exhales, it closes the valve, and rather than going through some skinny little pipe, it goes off these vents on either side, because they'd found that crystallization of your exhaust breath could become an issue. They put in as many things as they can to defeat that, including the rib design, which is both flexible, but also kind of keeps the ice from breaking up here. All right, so going down from shoulders. Also, in this particular one, you have a microphone embedded. On some of them, there wasn't on a microphone. They would have to use the throat microphone. So communication with the rest of the group. So far we've taken care of keeping his head warm, taken care of communications, and taken care of breathing. Let's take care of the rest of the pilot. The next thing we hit is a parachute, right? And if you can turn around for the crowd, this is a seat pack parachute. In the plane, there's not a seat with a pad on it. It's kind of a metal trough, and fitting in that is his parachute. And there's a padding in there. For some systems, this pad actually was a lifeboat. An inflatable little life raft with all sorts of tools and supplies. And if you can see, if you can turn my way, Wes, you see this conduit here. There's a wire that's inside the conduit that's hooked up to these points here. These are bungee cords. These are 1940s bungee cords. If you turn back around to the front, you lift up your left arm. You can see here the ring that he would pull that operate all of this. It would pull the cable through this. These would snap, bungees would snap it open, and boosh, your parachute goes behind you, and these straps that are behind him become his risers. Now, unlike the paratroopers at the time period, no practice jumps. Your first jump was your first jump. You used your parachute in anger the first time through. Below that, since he's operating over the Mediterranean for a good chunk of his flight, he's wearing the horse collar style Mae West, or life vest, inflatable by 2 CO2 cartridges. And this is now where reality meets home. People who have flown on an airline flight recently, you got your safety briefing. They told you, don't pull the tabs on your vest until you get outside. That's because it's going to inflate. And if it doesn't work, you've got tubes where you may manually inflate your vest. Same here, he's got those rubber tubes there. And obviously in the drink, getting this parachute harness off is in a hurry. On his way here, he's got a general purpose bag, a musette bag they call them, for papers, maps, etc., things he was going to need in planning the mission and flying the mission, etc. Just kind of an all-purpose good, man purse here, etc. He's flying in a khaki uniform, which you typically see in a lot of the warmer climate areas. And again, pilot choice. Some wanted to fly in a flight suit. They wear it over that, be a little bit warmer. Some are like, the heck with that. We'll have a just regular fly in my uniform shoes and my uniform khaki uniform, etc. So just creature comforts. I think we've covered everything. Do we have? Oh, one last thing, very important. Just in case he lands with unfriendlies, he's packing some heat here. His service pistol, the M1911A1, the improved version of the pistol that was first issued to American troops in 1911, 45 caliber automatic pistol. And carries 7 rounds in there. All right. How'd we do? Fantastic. How about a nice warm hand for an obviously very warm pilot? So you're going to hear more about the Tuskegee Airmen and their exploits and the like. I'd like now to kind of push the frame of the picture back a little further wide. As we tie up this week and all the Warbirds and review talks that we've given. Sometimes you might have heard me say the phrase, you know, we count the cost, right? We count the cost in terms of the sacrifices that the men and women in the air branches in the U.S. and also with our allies paid for our freedom today. 8th Air Force, 26,000 men were killed in action in the 8th Air Force. That's just one section of the United States Army Air Forces. And if you want to use that as a yardstick, that's more than Marines were killed in action in the entire Pacific Theater during World War II. The Royal Air Force lost 55,000 men in Bomber Command. And it's somber, it's solemn, but we're where we're today because those guys made the sacrifices. Because of the escort fighters, like the Tuskegee Airmen and their stellar record, and the stellar record of many, many escort squadrons, let's not talk about the guys we lost. Let's talk about the crews that came home. On the fence there, I have representative of a B-24 crew. The B-24s, they were used a lot flying out of Italy on missions that the Tuskegee Airmen would escort. You have a 10-man crew, and if you lost one of those ships, you lost 10 guys. But if they finished their tour, thanks to the expertise, the diligence of fighter escort groups like the Tuskegee Airmen, they got to go home. So let's meet the crew that got to go home because of Tuskegee. We have a pilot. Pilot Captain Bird, please come forward. Come right out to this line right here. Before the war, he was a clerk in a shoe store in Columbia, South Carolina, excuse me. South Carolina, I'm fighting words. Where he was selling Florsheim's. Well, he's wearing a different kind of Florsheim today. Our co-pilot, Captain Knapp, was an ROTC student at the University of Michigan during the war. He's gone up through the ranks quickly. Everybody in the squad thinks, yeah, he's going to be a general someday. He's career military front and back. Our navigator, Lieutenant McCulley, was a business major at the University of Illinois, dropped out and enlisted. They put him through navigation school. Now he's guiding B-24 bombers to and from the target. Lieutenant Zaharias, our bombardier, putting the bombs on target. Before the war, he opened the first Greek restaurant in Park Ridge, Illinois. Next, our top turret gunner, who was the lead NCO. All your gunners were NCOs, sergeants and a higher. He was basically the engineer of the ship, the flight engineer, in addition to being a turret gunner. Sergeant Varnes was a textile machinist before the world had woken up. Now he's applying the same sort of expertise to all the machinery in the B-24. Our radio operator, Sergeant Bobka. Sergeant Bobka was working for Grumman before the war, making floats for float planes for civilian airliners. Now he's up in a B-24 himself. Our ball turret gunner, and I know what you're thinking. He's tall for a ball turret gunner. Some of them were that tall. We regularly had years ago, before he passed Doug Ward, he was 6'1" when he was in service flying in the ball turret gunner. The sergeant was a farmer, Ashtabula, Ohio, before the war. Let's have our waist turret gunner. He's wearing some of the later war uniforms, including some armor that was issued to the flyers toward the tail end of the war, protecting his noggin, a flak helmet, and a flak vest, and a flak apron to protect the upcoming family lineage. All right. We also have a waist gunner from the other side. Sergeant Ham, let's come forward. Sergeant Ham came from dirt poor farming country in near Canton, Illinois. He was so incensed at Hirohito on December 8th that he hitched up old Bessie to the wagon and was first in line at the recruiting station. It's fighting words between him and the other farmer as to who actually enlisted first off the farm. Next, we have our tail gunner. Was working in the city streets department of Watertown, Wisconsin, enlisted after Pearl Harbor. So think of these guys. Oh, a few more important guys left. Can I have my ground crewmen? None of this worked without the guys who worked around the clock in sometimes miserable condition, patching these birds back together and getting them back in the sky. You know, the escorts can't escort them. They can't bomb unless propellers turn, oxygen systems work, radio systems work, holes that got shot through them get patched. So very, very important. The unsung heroes. I know one crew chief was in the 8th Air Force. His planes that he serviced supervised the crews, never ever came back. They went to the target every single time. They never had a return. He was awarded the Bronze Star for heroism for putting that kind of fight to Hitler. Okay, so this is the crew that came home. These are the guys who got to become husbands, fathers, grandfathers, maybe your grandfather. Okay? So, yeah, we want to honor the guys who didn't make it. We want to honor the guys who came home, too. It's been a fantastic week. It's been a great privilege to be up here in front of you guys, honoring these planes, honoring these guys who flew them and serviced them. So until next year at AirVenture and Warbird Central, Chip Berger, Voice of Living History Group, signing off. Thank you so much. And goodbye.
Thank you, Chip, and the members of the Living History Group. Folks, make sure to stop by and visit them. You'll see their operation in the camp to your left down the road there where you see the green canvas tents that I'm sure are very cool this time of day. In just a few minutes, we'll have some entertainment for you from a lady that will be singing. But before that, we have to move our aircraft in. So enjoy the transportation and view of that as they move the beautiful planes in here. Again, if you're in the area here, Warbirds, stop over our area here for Warbirds in Review. We'll be starting our program in just a few minutes with our Tuskegee Airmen talking about the beautiful planes you see in front of you. But before we do that, we have some entertainment for you for a lady that's been with us for 10 years here in Warbirds in Review, singing songs from the era. Please give a warm welcome to Miss Teresa Eamon.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, and welcome to what I think might be the warmest day at Warbirds in Review all week. Thank the Lord. I want to give a big welcome to everybody who's joined me every day this week, as well as those of you that are just discovering the Warbirds in Review program, and also a big hello to everyone that's joining online via air-to-airtv.com from all over the world. We're so glad to have you with us this week, and here for the very last program of Oshkosh 22. For the next little while, I'm going to sing music from the time period that is represented by the planes behind us, which of course is the 1940s, and I'm going to sing a lot of the songs that you guys all love and request all week long. So I want to start this with the song that I like to start all of these with, because we are taking a musical journey, and it's definitely a sentimental journey. Gonna take a sentimental journey, gonna set my heart at ease, gonna take a sentimental journey to renew old memories. Got my bag, I got my reservation, spent each dime I could afford. Like a child in wild anticipation, I long to hear that all aboard. 7, that's the time we'll meet at 7. I'll be waiting up for heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gonna take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey home. 7, that's the time we'll meet at 7. I'll be waiting up for heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gonna take a sentimental journey, sentimental journey home. Sentimental journey home. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, this next song is a song that was recorded by Ella Fitzgerald, and she is one of my favorite singers of all time. And it's interesting, I don't know if you know this historically, but she started out wanting to be a dancer up in Harlem, and she did not do very well at being a dancer, and she ended up being drafted by the Chick Webb Orchestra to sing for her, and the band members actually had to teach her how to do her hair and keep herself attractive, because her mother had died quite a bit earlier, and she basically was living on her own in the streets. Well, ultimately, fast forward, and she became one of the greatest singers of this time period and any other. But oddly, her very first song to get any recognition was a children's nursery rhyme. And this is the song that did it. This is a song called A Tisket, A Tasket. A tisket, a tasket, a brown and yellow basket, I sent a letter to my mommy. On the way I dropped it. I dropped it, I dropped it. Yes, on the way I dropped it. A little girlie picked it up and put it in her pocket. She was trucking on down the avenue with not a single thing to do. She was a pecking all around. When she spied it on the ground, she took it, my little yellow basket. And if she doesn't bring it back, I think that I will cry. A tisket, a tasket, I lost my yellow basket. And if that girlie don't return it, don't know what I'll do. Oh, gee, I wonder where my basket can be.
So do we.
Oh, gee, I wish that little girl I could see.
So do we.
Oh, why was I so careless with that basket of mine? That itty-bitty basket was a joy of mine. A tisket, a tasket, I lost my yellow basket. Won't someone help me find my basket? Make me happy again.
Was it green?
No.
Was it red?
No.
Was it blue?
No, just a little yellow basket. A little yellow basket. Thank you very much. It's a little early in the day. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you guys. I often do not know how to react when younger people react to this music, but what I do know is that this music pretty much speaks to just about everyone, so I'm really not surprised. This next song I'd like to sing is one that my dear friend and sweetheart in my heart, Bud Anderson, always asks for, and I do try to sing it when he's around, and he is around today. And since this is our very last show, I'm going to throw this one in. This is a great song too that makes me feel like in a year from now we're going to be seeing each other again. I hope you've had enough fun that you think you'd like to do this again in 2023. This is a song called "I'll Be Seeing You." I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree,
the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's one of my favorite songs to sing, so thank you so much. This next song is a song that was sung by Vera Lynn, and it's one that I haven't done for you this week. So if you've been coming to every show, I told you that I'd be dropping a new song in every show, and I owe that to you. But anybody out there having an anniversary this week? Yay! So this one is especially for you, and for anybody who's celebrating an anniversary and coming to EAA Air Venture, because, you know, every year we join up here. And so this is a song, pardon me, appropriately called the Anniversary Waltz.
We just discovered each other tonight while the lights were low. One dance led up to another, and now I can't let you go. So tell me I will always dance the anniversary waltz with you. Tell me this is real romance, an anniversary dream come true. Let this be the answer to our future years, through millions of smiles and a few little tears. May I always listen to the anniversary waltz with you.
If this is your anniversary out there, I wish you love, happiness for the next year till I see you again.
Let this be the answer to our future years, through millions of smiles and a few little tears. May I always listen to the anniversary waltz with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I surely do appreciate that. This next song, I need to get back to my other list, is another one of those sentimental songs that, I don't know, I kind of like to sing on the last day because I know it's going to be 360 days till I see you again. I'm not known for my math. It might be 359. And was recorded by Frank Sinatra as well as Dame Vera Lynn and many others. This is a song called We'll Meet Again.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, I know that we're getting close to the time for our speakers to come on, but sometimes it takes a little longer to get everything arranged and microphones on, and it is the last day, and everything that's supposed to happen doesn't. So I'm going to sing a few more songs for you, but before I do that, I just want to mention a couple of things. First off, air-to-airtv.com has been providing a live stream of each one of these Warbirds in Review all week this week. But this is not all that they do. They also provide content about airplanes all year long. And if you go to their website, airtv.com, and you get in there and you sign up for a year, here's a secret. I have a coupon code for you that it will be free. And that coupon code is Warbirds22. So if you go there, you will be able to watch these all over again if there's one that you missed or one that you'd like to see again because you had to leave or you just want to see it again. Plus, there's content about airplanes, pilots, people who have restored the airplanes, plus many other things. Ladies, if you're looking for a gift for your husband who has everything, or at least it feels like that, you can definitely give them a gift like this and they'll think you're really in touch with the things that they love. So check it out, airtoairtv.com. I also want to thank all of the staff here, whether they are TV, sound, especially my friend Ron, who gets 0 kudos for making me sound good. But that man keeps my act together and makes me sound a lot better than I probably would if it wasn't him. And so a big thank you to Ron, who has put up with me for 10 whole years. And that's quite an achievement. So I do want to thank you. Many performers do not recognize the value of a good sound man because all he has to do is go like this and the show is over. So thank you so much for helping me thank him. I'm going to sing at least one more song for you. I know that these are a lot of ballads, but these are some of my favorites to sing. And this particular one is really one of my favorites. And I discovered it during COVID when I had to learn new music for a now defunct online program that I did and eventually got thrown off of Facebook for copyright infringement. But you know, the bot doesn't know good music when it hears it. But this particular song is one that was recorded by Joe Stafford, and I just love it. It's a song called You Belong to Me.
See the pyramids along the Nile. Watch the sunrise from a tropic isle. Just remember, darling, all the while you belong to me. See the marketplace in old Algiers. Send me photographs and souvenirs. Just remember, when a dream appears, you belong to me. I'll be so alone without you. Maybe you'll be lonesome too and blue. Fly the ocean in a silver plane. See the jungle when it's wet with rain. Just remember, till you're home again, you belong to me. I'll be so alone without you. Maybe you'll be lonesome too and blue. Fly the ocean in a silver plane. See the jungle when it's wet with rain. But remember, darling, till you're home again, that you belong to me.
Well, thank you very, very much. I want to thank all of you for joining me, especially my Minnesota man. I'm not going to say your name, but you have been at every single show, and I'm so grateful to see your face, because when I'm feeling my most insecure, I realize at least one person comes to see me every single time that isn't a friend or taking my picture. I want to thank all of you. I wish you all a wonderful and safe year, as well as safe travels home. And if you're watching online, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you again next year, fingers crossed. But until then, take care. Don't take any wooden nickels. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and thank you, Teresa. And I'm really glad to hear that you plan to be back next year. This program would not be the same without Teresa. So another hand for Teresa. Beautiful voice, wonderful person to work with. She joined our crew about 10 years ago, so it's been a real pleasure to have her here. My name is Connie Boland. I am the founder and pretend to be the coordinator of this event each year. And it takes a large crew to support this and make it happen. As you see, everybody, it is a well-oiled machine at this point. One more time, I'd like for you to look into the control room and wave at the guys there. Scott Guyette and his team of Sleeping Dog Productions, they are a very professional, and we are so fortunate to have that group of guys and girls and the camera people out here. This is the last of our shows this year, so a special thanks to all of them. Yes, they are professionals, but they're also volunteers. They put their heart and soul into our motto here of heritage, history, and heroes, and they believe in it, as we all do. So it's my pleasure to be a part of that crew and to have such great people that make us all look good. Warbirds in Review is the place to be at Oshkosh, and as Teresa said, I see a lot of people who are here every day, so we thank all of you, as I thank the Scott's Miracle-Gro Company. I do that every day, and the takeoff, the satire they did the other night, they have my thank yous down, but it's a very heartfelt thank you to the reenactors who did a little reenacting and playing jokes on us the other night, which was a lot of fun. I thank those guys for being here, and of course Teresa and Scott's Miracle-Gro Company makes all this possible. They provide the funding for our production crew every year, and to Ron and Diane Fagan, who give us the building here that provides us the great facility to do that. Our owners and pilots and all the participants in these shows, we try to organize this every year, and then there are always little things that happen. So to the owners who stepped up at the last minute this year, in these airplanes we brought in the ground crew, brought all those in this morning, rounded that up. So you don't need to listen to me anymore. Here in a few minutes, you'll have Sam Bass, our moderator, who's been with us for all 22 years of this program. Sam's going to be the moderator today, and we have an opening video, so if you'll direct your attention to that. And I say thank you to all of you and to all of our presenters and owners for being here. Thank you.
1,007 Tuskegee Airmen pilots trained at Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama, including single-engine fighter pilots, twin-engine bomber pilots, and service and liaison pilots. But the total number of Tuskegee Airmen, counting ground personnel such as aircraft mechanics and logistical personnel, was more than 14,000. They flew more than 15,000 individual sorties on more than 1,300 combat missions in Europe and North Africa during World War II. Their impressive performance earned them an amazing 150 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 744 Air Medals, 1 Silver Star, 1 Legion of Merit, 8 Purple Hearts, 14 Bronze Stars, 3 Distinguished Unit Citations, and they helped encourage the eventual integration of the U.S. Armed Forces. Between early June 1944 and the end of April 1945, the Tuskegee Airmen flew 312 missions, 179 of which were bomber escort missions. On only 7 of those missions did they lose bombers to enemy aircraft. Many of their missions were flown in red-tailed P-51 Mustangs, and for that reason they are sometimes called the Red Tails. Retired Brigadier General Charles E. McGee, who fought in 3 wars, logged 6,308 flying hours and a remarkable 409 combat missions. Among the most in service history, said, "The Tuskegee story is an important civil rights story of Americans who happen to be black, in service to their country, their family, and to their friends, in that order." In the many decades since World War II, these men have become icons in the aviation world. We can only feel a great appreciation for their actual accomplishments, the obstacles they overcame, and how they have inspired generations of young people, and how they will continue to inspire generations to come.
The third one? The third one, Doug's in 4. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the last Warbirds in Review for 2022. We're very honored today to have the Tuskegee Airmen represented. We have Colonel George Hardy here, and we have Colonel Harvey here. And this is Doug Rosenthal. And Doug here, he's the head trainer for all of the CAF Red Tails, and this is only one of 2. You've got a P-51. What else you have?
Well, we have several airplanes, about 170 airplanes in the CAF. The Red Tail Squadron, we have a P-51C Mustang that you've seen on this stage many times, but sadly it's in maintenance right now, so we couldn't be here. So we borrowed some airplanes from another group, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll take care of that later. First of all, Colonel Hardy, now your decorations, you had the DFC with Valor, you had the Air Force Medal with 11 oak leaf clusters, and a Commendation Medal with an oak leaf cluster. And you were in the class of 44H. What kind of training do you look back on it? You feel like your training was pretty adequate?
We had very good training. I thought the instructors were very good. And, I hadn't even driven a car when I went into flying training, and I came out as a pilot. See? And so they were very good, I thought.
Now, when you initially qualified, you went to what, the P-47 or P-40 and then the P-47, is that correct?
Well, I graduated from training in September 44. And then we got some time in the P-40, then combat training in a P-47 for 3 months, and then overseas in 1945.
And that was a P-51, so you went to the P-51s.
Overseas, we got a couple flights in the 51, then we were on missions. And but it was easy to transfer from one airplane to the other.
Now, you flew 21 missions, is that correct?
21 missions before the war ended.
All right.
The Germans gave up after.
Walk us through just a typical mission.
Well, a typical mission for us, we were flying out of Ramatelli, Italy. In Italy, there's a eastern coast, you see that little spur out. We were just below that. And 15th Air Force, and 15th Air Force had a number of bomb groups, B-17s and B-24s. They would take off, and we would meet them before they got to Germany and escort them on their missions over Germany to ensure that the German fighters didn't get to them or attack them, and escort them to the target and bring them back until it was safe. Then if the mission wasn't too long, and 51 had a lot of fuel in it, we'd go back and strafe targets of opportunity, anything to harass the Germans.
Okay. So that after the war, did you stay into the military?
I got out in 46 and went to NYU for a year, but I got married and went back in 48. And then I had a full career in the service when I went back in 48. I retired from active duty in 1971 as a lieutenant colonel.
So in Korea, what did you do in Korea?
Well, in 1948, when I went back in, I decided even if I couldn't fly, I wanted to be around airplanes, so I went into electronics maintenance. The Air Defense Command had some fighters with radar on them, and I wanted to work in those. But instead of that, when I graduated from electronics training in August of 1949, I was assigned to the 19 Bomb Group on Guam, a B-29 outfit. It was the only B-29 outfit not in SAC. They belonged to MacArthur, his head in Japan. They were with him when the war started in the Philippines and went down to Australia and came back with him, and he kept them there. I was assigned in that group as a maintenance officer. But as a pilot, I also checked out in the B-29.
Well, you flew 45 missions, is that correct?
Well, I got put on a combat crew, yes, and ended up flying 45 combat missions on B-25 and B-29s.
B-29. Mm-hmm. Well,
my longest mission was 11 hours, so some of the missions took time there in the B-29.
So go through a typical mission and preparation for it.
Well, let me take the first mission. The war started 25th of June, 1950. We were on Guam. We had to move to Okinawa. And I was a maintenance officer also, so I had to work doing that. And on the 3rd of June, our crew flew our first mission. And the first mission was to bomb the North Koreans were coming down through the mountains headed to Seoul, whatnot. We were supposed to bomb the paths up there. But things were not clear to us then. And the place was cloudy. And so just before Truman said we could go into North Korea, we started heading and finally ended up over Wonsan. Not sure what to do, except we got called back that the target had cleared, so we went back and bombed the original target. But we almost dropped some bombs on ships in Wonsan Harbor. When the war started, things were not that clear as to what to do. We're just looking someplace to drop our bombs.
Well, how many missions did you have interference from the MiGs?
In what?
MiGs.
Oh, I didn't get involved in MiGs. But I will say one thing, that we had racial problems. I was the first Afro-American in the 19 Bomb Group. And I was put on a crew, a makeup crew, because we had enough gunners and whatnot. And I was the maintenance officer. The pilot was the personnel officer. The adjutant of the squadron was the bombardier. We had extra jobs, and we made up a full crew. And we started flying over Korea. But I got a new squadron commander who wouldn't speak to me in May. And when we got up there on the 12th of July on the 7th mission, I finished checking in the cockpit before takeoff, and suddenly I heard Harvey get down out of the airplane. He replaced me on that mission. It was a mission up over near Wonsan. Anyway, later in the day, that was the first B-29 shot down over Korea with my crew and without me. And but fortunately, he was transferred several weeks later to group, and a new commander put me back on a crew, and I got to fly 45 combat missions.
So you flew your 45 combat missions, you came back, and you were now a maintenance officer, maintenance in the B-36s.
Well, when I came back from overseas in 51, I came back as a flight crew member because I'd flown enough missions. But SAC, I went into SAC, and they saw I was an electronics maintenance officer. They put me in. They had separate maintenance squadrons, Armament Electronics Maintenance Squadron. I did electronics. They immediately sent me to Denver for 7 months for the armament. I was a fully qualified Armament Electronics Maintenance Squadron. And I had a career in maintenance. I ended up as a maintenance squadron commander in '62. That was my main job. And but I would still fly as base flight airplanes, whatnot. But I spent a lot of career in maintenance. I loved maintenance. But B-36 was, worked on that too. It was quite an airplane. And then I went to the Institute of Technology and then to Japan. And then to Plattsburgh, New York as a squadron commander in maintenance squadron.
Well, on the B-36 is a lot of moving parts there. Was
a lot of moving parts in the B-36. That was the biggest airplane we ever had. Had 6 reciprocating engines. The props were on the rear of the wing. And it had 4 jets, 10 engines to take off. And those things were based in Fort Worth and places like that. And theoretically, they could fly from Fort Worth to the Soviet Union, drop their bombs, and come back without refueling. They were huge. Someone your size could walk right into the wing from the, that's how big the wing was, from the fuselage. So it was quite an airplane to maintain and to fly. So.
Well, now, did you go from there directly to the air refueling squadron, that you were the squadron commander?
I went for 2 years in 55, 57 to the Institute of Technology and got a degree in engineering. Then I went to Japan for 3 years, then to Plattsburgh, New York, and became a squadron commander up there in refueling wing. And that's when my life changed up there. That same officer who pulled me off that airplane in Okinawa was now my wing commander. And I worked for him for 2.5 years. And it was probably the best 2.5 years of my career under him the second time.
He had changed?
He had changed, yes. The only time we talked about career was one day in a club. I was sitting there having a brew with people, and he slapped me on the back and said, "George and I fought the Korean War together." Yeah, okay, we did. But I got along so well with him the second time because I didn't hold a grudge, but I wanted to see how he was. And I got to like him.
Yeah.
And we like to work for him for 2.5 years.
Well, let's jump a little bit ahead of here and go to Vietnam now. The Vietnam conflict, and you're in a really unique.
Well, Vietnam came much later.
You're right.
Now, in '62, I went to Institute of Technology, contacted me to go to graduate school. I went back and got a master's degree in systems engineering in '63 to August '64, and then I went to the systems command for 5.5 years. And I worked in systems command, installing systems overseas. And I ended up the chief of engineering and program manager for the Overseas Audubon Switches program. I worked for that for 3.5 years, but just the time we cut over the first switches in Europe, they were looking for pilots to fly in a 119. They made a gunship out of the 119, the AC-119,
right,
flying boxcar. It was obsolete then, but they modified 52, and 26 of them were K models, which they had heavy guns on them, 20mm Gatling guns. It was overweight, so you had 2 props and 2 jets on the airplane, and that's what I flew as a gunship. We looked for trucks going down to from North Vietnam down through Laos and whatnot. Look for trucks at night and targets with infrared equipment and fly around them, flying circle, and we knocked out a lot of trucks. The 20 millimeter gun was pretty powerful, 6 rotating barrels, and we'd only fly at night because we were low and slow, and that was our protection.
So you as a pilot, you did the aiming, is that correct?
The pilot controlled the plane going around, and the co-pilot controlled the altitude. But you had a gun sight here on the pilot. You got the flying angle, you got around, you got everything set up, and you had a crosshair in there. And the infrared operator would pick up a target, and the crosshair would end up in the gun sight. And the pilot would have to fly and get the angle right, and the crosshair is superposed on the other. The pilot flying the airplane shoots the guns because the guns are fixed.
Right.
So and you shoot it for 1 or 2 second bursts, and that's 100, 200 rounds.
So you flew 70 missions in
70 missions doing that. Well, the thing is, I was a lieutenant colonel, and when I got over there, they really took my crew away from me when I got to Phan Rang, which is a base, but the airplanes are Udon, Thailand, or Da Nang. After briefing over there, I became the commander at Udon and then moved to Da Nang. So I didn't fly as many missions as the other pilots, but I flew 70.
So you retired in 1971. What did you do between Vietnam and 1971?
Well, I came back from overseas in 71, and I had a physical, and they took me off flight status for something I had before I went to Vietnam. So then I put in for retirement. So.
You were physical enough to fly in Vietnam, but not physical enough to get back in the States.
That's right. So I put in for retirement and retired in November 1971.
Out of all of these airplanes that you've flown, what was your favorite airplane?
Well, the B-51, naturally. I was 19 years old flying this plane by myself. And 51 was a marvelous airplane. You couldn't beat that. So.
How old were you when the war was over?
Well, when I was flying in 51 in Europe, I was still 19. But 71, I'm trying to figure how old was I? I don't remember now.
That's no problem. That's no. Colonel Harvey, I'd like to talk about what class were you in? When you went through?
You say class?
Yes, what class?
44I.
And so when did you graduate? When did you graduate
When?
from pilot training? Yes.
College?
No, from pilot training.
Oh, October 16th, 1944.
Okay. How difficult was it for you to get into the pilot training program to start off with?
Well, January 1943, I tried to enlist in the Army Air Corps, and they said they weren't taking enlistments at that time. That was the height of the war. So the only thing left was my color. They didn't want me. So I was drafted into the Army in March of 43.
And then how did you get into the pilot training program?
Okay, I went to Fort Meade, Maryland. I took my physical, took a written exam, got my shots, and then I was signed to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri for 30 days of basic training. I went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, got my training, and when I finished, they put me in the Army Air Corps engineers, driving bulldozers, graders, carryalls. My mission was to go into the jungles of the Pacific, doze out an area, and build an airfield. And we used to go out and practice every day in a little town called Accotink, Virginia. All this dust and perspiration. I said, no, this isn't for me. So I applied for cadet training. And there were 10 of us, 9 whites and myself, that went to Bowling Field. We took the exam. After the exam was over, only 2 of us passed. And from there I went to Keiser Field, Biloxi, Mississippi for 30 more days of basic training. I completed that, and the rest is history.
Now, when you got through training, you went over to the 332nd Fighter Group. And what airplane were you flying there?
Well, while I was in combat training, I flew the P-40, the P-47, the Razorback, and then the P-47D.
Okay. So how many missions did you fly over there?
I did not make it to Europe.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I finished my combat training in April of 45. Had my bags packed within 1 hour catching the train to go to Norfolk to get on the ship to go over and join the group. We got a message saying to hold us. The war in Italy was over and they expected to wind up the whole European theater. Well, Hitler gave up the following month of May, so I would have been on the high seas.
Well, tell us about 1949 and the USAF aerial gunnery competition, about how you trained for it and what General Davis said to you before you left.
Okay. In January of 49, the Chief of Staff of the newly formed United States Air Force sent a directive out to all the fighter groups in the United States that they were to have weapons competition between each group on each base and each pilot in each squadron. And then they were to pick their three high scorers to represent their fighter group in the first ever Top Gun weapons meet to be held in May of 1949. Well, us, the 332nd Fighter Group, we had scores because we had just been to England 7 a month prior. So based on our scores, Captain Temple of the 301st, Harry Stewart of the 100th, myself of the 99th, were chosen as primary members, and First Lieutenant Halbert Alexander of the 99th as an alternate member. So that was our team, representing the 332nd Fighter Group.
So you were what kind of training did you do before this? Anything particular?
What was
the
that,
P-47? Now the P-47 was of the other airplanes that were in this competition. You were the one that was the least qualified as far as aircraft. Is that correct?
Yes, we were flying the obsolete P-47. It was a good aircraft, but it was still obsolete. And our competitors were flying P-51s and P-82s. Now, the P-82 looks like two P-51 fuselages, one wing, and one horizontal stabilizer. That's your P-82.
So they didn't figure you were much competition, I suppose.
We didn't have any competition.
Yeah, you did, but they didn't figure you were going to be competition.
Oh no, no one did. No.
Now, after you won this thing, what happened after you won the award?
Okay, we won the competition. However, we were never recognized as the winner. The Air Force Association puts out a magazine every month. Once a year, they put out an almanac. One of the items in the almanac are the winners of the 1949 weapons meet through present day. Well, today it's called Red Flag. It's altogether different. It's all electronics. But each year when that almanac came out, the winner of the 49 weapons meet was listed as unknown, unknown, unknown. Finally, in April of 1995, our group commander called me and asked me if I had any data on the meet. I told him no, maybe Stewart did. So he called Stewart. Stewart said he didn't have it. He could probably find it at Nellis. So he went to Nellis. He found what he was looking for. And as of September of 1995, it shows the 332nd Fighter Group as the winner of the 1949 weapons meet. 46 years.
And this trophy was hidden all this time.
The trophy somehow got misplaced, the big 3-foot solid silver trophy. Somehow it got lost. We have a lady in Atlanta, she's an historian. She made it her mission to find it. She found it in 5 days at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Museum storage area. So she went to Wright-Pat and she saw the trophy and she asked, why isn't this on display? They said, we get a lot of items in. We can't display everything. This item will never be on display. Well, it is on display at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Museum.
Talk to us a little bit about your tour in Korea. Now, you flew in Korea also, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
How many missions did you fly in Korea?
In Korea, I flew 126 missions. in
And what-
89 days.
And what airplane?
The F-80.
The F-80.
F-80.
The P-80.
Now, when I was at they broke our group up in May of 1949 and scattered us all over the world. I mean June of 49. That's right after the weapons meet. And actually integration started in 48, but nothing happened until they broke our group up. Well, Eddie Drummond and I, we were both in the 99th. We were scheduled to go to Misawa, Japan. It's up in the northern part of Honshu. Before we transferred out from Lockbourne, our 201 file was sent to the wing commander at Misawa. Wing commander, and our picture was in that file. So the wing commander called all the pilots, base pilots into the base theater, and said, we have these 2 Negro pilots coming in, and they'll be assigned to one of the squadrons. Well, the pilots told us this themselves. They said, no way are we going to fly with them. No way. Okay. Eddie Drummond and I reported into the wing commander. We're sitting there chit-chatting. And he says, what do you want us to call you? I said, well, I'm a first lieutenant. Eddie Drummond's a second lieutenant. How about Lieutenants Harvey and Drummond? He said, okay, what you were supposed to do anyway. Let's see. All of a sudden, my mind is wiped clean. Anyway, they did not have then he said, we have 3 fighter squadrons on the base, 2 P-51 squadrons and an F-80 squadron. Which one do you want to go to? The F-80's a jet. Which one do you want to go to? I said F-80. So he put us both in the F-80 squadron. Now, they did not have a T-33, which is the trainer version of the F-80, but they did have an AT-6. We flew that in advance. In the back seat of the AT-6 is a hood. You can pull up, lock it. You can't see out. All you can see are your instruments. Now, each one of us had 2 rides in the back seat of this AT-6. So we'll use myself as an example. I get in the airplane, pull the hood up. All I can see are my instruments. The pilot up front, which is one of them, they get taxi and takeoff instructions from the tower. Taxi out. He lines up on the runway and says, okay, you've got it. So I apply power down the runway, get off the ground, pull up the gear, mixture control, prop pitch, all that stuff you do in a conventional aircraft. Fly around during the maneuvers he wants me to do, and then contact ground control approach. They vector me in for a landing, and then when I touch down on the runway, the pilot up front took over. What does that have to do with flying the F-80? Nothing. Now, this bothered me for years, and I finally figured it out. They wanted to see if we could fly, and we proved we could. We were always proving that we could fly, no matter where we went. Anyway, we proved that we could fly. Then the Korean War started in September 25th, 1943.
June 25th. June 25th, 1950.
June
25th. June 25, 1950.
Oh, okay. That's when the war started in Korea. Anyway, at this point, I'm a flight commander scheduling these guys to fly. And we're not having any problems whatsoever because they know that I can fly. I'm a Tuskegee Airman, so right there, that says a lot. So I'm scheduling them to fly. The Korean War starts. We're in Osaka, Japan at gunnery training. So we immediately are deployed to Itazuki, the next island down, and started flying missions out of there. And our first missions were circling Seoul while they evacuated civilians out of Seoul. Then, no, we're still in Itazuki. I was on a bombing mission leading a flight of 4 F-80s, well, leading 3 F-80s because I was in the 4th one. And we've been on a bombing mission. We dropped our bombs up in northern Korea. And on our way, we still have a full complement of 50 caliber ammunition in our guns. And we were in the Busan area of South Korea. And we got a call saying they have some ground troops pinned down in the mountains and they needed help. Would I be able to help? I said yes. So I led the other 3 guys. We dropped down into the mountain area. We found it was cloudy this day, so all the valleys were covered with clouds. We found the targets, or the target, we found our target. We emptied our guns in the target area, pulled back up on top, and flew back to Itazuki, Japan. A couple weeks later, we got a telegram from the commander of the troops that were pinned down, and he thanked us for what we had done, because we had killed about 1,200 of the enemy.
Wow.
Now, in a jet aircraft, the speed of the aircraft plus the muzzle velocity of the bullet, one bullet can do a lot of damage. But anyway, mission accomplished. And on that mission, we all got the DFC.
Now, all these airplanes that you've flown in your career, what's your favorite airplane? What's your favorite airplane of all the airplanes you've flown?
The F-102, big Delta Dagger.
How much time did you get in that?
Oh, not very much. Maybe 75 hours. Because I had just come back from Japan in '58, and I went to group operations officer, group operations as an assistant group operations officer. Well, that was at Selfridge. That was in '58, the latter part of '58. They had 2 squadrons, an F-102 squadron and an F-86D squadron. Now, the 102 squadron, the operations officer, the only time it flew at night was in the TF-102. 2 people in it. So you could say he was afraid to fly the airplane. So, and plus morale was low. The pilots were afraid to fly the airplane. So the group ops officer sent me down to the squadron to straighten the squadron out. So I went down there. I flew on the wing of the new pilots at night, in weather. It didn't matter. I turned it around within a week. They were clamoring to fly. Prior to that, they were afraid to fly.
For both of you, considering all the adversity you've gone through in your career, if you had to advise some young person today about what to do in life, what would you advise them?
I advise them going through it. We had problems, but we were able to work around those problems. And I ended up with a full career in the service. And in my case, I thought someone was taking care of me, someone looking down on me. I went into service as a high school graduate, 1 year college, and ended up with 2 degrees in the service. A lieutenant colonel, retired, flew in 3 wars, and came back each time. So you can't beat that. So,
Colonel Harvey, what kind of advice would you give to young folks today?
What kind of folks?
Young folks, the young people coming up.
Oh, right out of high school?
Yes.
Okay. They're finished? They're graduated?
They've graduated, and they haven't decided what they're going to do. What kind of advice would you give them?
Okay. Make a decision, but be the best. Strive to be the best no matter what you do. Always aim to be number 1. And if you do that, everything will work out. Believe it or not.
Well, I might add to that especially with the Red Tail group, I talked to a lot of youngsters,
right?
Young boys and young girls, and I make it a point to talk to the young girls. It doesn't take strength to fly an airplane. It's what you have up here. Everything's control assisted, and flying over the years I've talked with a lot of WASP, Women's Army Service pilots, and over the years I've run into some particularly fighter pilots, young women fighter pilots, and they're tremendous. It's just that they learn to fly and they think and apply what they've learned, and they became damn good pilots. So you don't have to have strength, have it up here.
Doug, kind of walk us through the training program that they went through.
Well, I think the training program in Tuskegee was very much like the training program everywhere in the day. Pilots started in a basic trainer or in a primary trainer like a PT-22 or a PT-26, PT-19 or a PT-17 Stearman. Got their initial exposure there, and then they proceeded to a basic trainer like we have here, then on to the advanced trainer like the T6 that we have here. You know, we were hoping to have our red-tail Mustang here. It suffered a landing accident last fall, and like everything else, supply chain and labor issues, we were hoping to have it done and not able to have it here, but we just couldn't quite make the finish line. So we'd like to thank a couple groups. Number one is the Riley family. This airplane, you know, these airplanes are tools we use to tell a story, and we've listened to some amazing stories here this afternoon from these gentlemen. But we've got to. The rest of us have a responsibility to keep these stories alive, and these airplanes are an exciting way that we can do that. This airplane has a great story. It served in Sweetwater, Texas as a WASP airplane, and the pilot flew it here this year is Devin Riley, a woman who soloed at Sweetwater, Texas in this airplane. Are you here, Devin?
She's right here.
Right up there. Stand up. Devin Riley. Their family operates the Texas Air Academy in Central Texas, and they train people in Warbirds and things like that. So this airplane has a great story. This airplane in AT-6, it served at Tuskegee, Alabama, and the T-6 is the greatest trainer of all time for numerous reasons. This airplane belongs to the National Museum of the Tuskegee Airmen based in Detroit, Michigan, and they have a small museum there and a couple original Tuskegee Airmen Stearmans as well, and they're keeping the story there. Brian, are you here? Brian Smith? Brian Smith is the chairman of that museum, and they were gracious enough to let us use their airplanes to fill in today. So back to the training, basically, you know, the first thing about the training in World War II, it happened at airfields, not airports, and an airfield is typically round, and it's typically grass, so crosswind landings weren't a big deal. And you know, the Stearman has a bit of a reputation on pavement. I fly a lot of different airplanes, and nothing makes me pay more attention than a stock Stearman on pavement, because it's a very challenging airplane to fly on the pavement. But on the grass, it's a big pussycat and a wonderful airplane. And all of those airplanes, especially the Fairchilds, were just incredibly delightful, nice airplanes to fly. And once they got their basic flying skills, they'd move to an airplane like this, the BT-13, affectionately known as the Waltz vibrator. And everybody thinks that's because this airplane shook a lot in flight, but that's absolutely not true. The 985 450 horse Pratt & Whitney is one of the smoothest round engines there is, and this is a delightful flying airplane. But when it stalls, it'll just about shake the windows out of the canopy as it falls through the horizon. And so it got that name. And basically, we moved from this airplane with fixed gear and a 450 horse engine to the AT-6 or the SNJ, depending on what you were flying, or the Harvard, as they call it up in Canada. And the Harvard's got a 600 horse engine. It's got retractable gear, and it has a little bit more interesting stall characteristics. If you look at the wing on the T6, the trailing edge is straight and the leading edge is tapered. So that means the center of lift on this airplane makes it effectively a swept wing airplane. And that means the stall happens first at the tip. And so when this airplane stalls, it falls, it brakes hard one way or another. And it's a better exposure to what you're going to experience in the fighters. Instructing in a T6 is an absolute joy because you don't have to talk much. The airplane does the talking for you. If the student makes a mistake and tries to raise the wing as it stalls and falls, it increases the angle of attack on that airplane, and the airplane digs in and goes faster. If you don't have the airplane perfectly aligned with the runway when the tires touch the pavement, it's headed out to the weeds somewhere. And just a fantastic training airplane. And when you are the master of this machine, moving to the Mustang or the P-40 is a very easy transition. And today at the CAF, we use basically the same pathway to get people from wherever they may be. They may enter at this airplane, or they may enter at the T6 based on what their previous flying experience was. But we put them in, when they're mastered this machine, then we put them in the back seat of the T6 where the visibility is more limited to simulate, number one, the bigger engine on some of the fighters that blocks your visibility. And number two, we want to know that those pilots are ready to bring that airplane back in one piece when there's oil on the windshield. And when you can fly this airplane well from the back seat, you are ready to go fly a fighter. And I've had the privilege of checking out several people in the T6 and moving them on to fighters. And nothing in the world is more fun than that. About 20 years ago now, I guess it was, I had the privilege of checking out Brad Lang in the P50 in the Red Tail Mustang, and Brad's the son of a Tuskegee Airman, and that was one of the highlights of my life. So on behalf of the CAF and the Red Tail Squadron, we're just really happy to be here and be able to share this with these guys and hear their stories and the positive attitude that they had and their focus to achieve what they did in their lives.
I think one little thing about the T6, Connie Edwards was here a few years back, and somebody asked Connie, he had a lot of P-51 time, he said, well, what's it like to fly a P-51? He said, it's a good trainer for a T6.
Amen.
We've got time for just a few questions. Where's my little people that have got the mics? Nobody's here. Oh, okay. Anybody? Question? No one? Don't be shy. Just be.
Did any one of you two gentlemen have a personal relationship with Alfred Anderson, Chief?
I didn't.
No, we didn't have a personal relationship with him. He was the chief pilot at Tuskegee, and we were students when we went through that, so we didn't have any personal relationship with him. We got to see him now and then, but not to talk to him.
I've got one question here. That's talked to you a little bit earlier about it, like Benjamin Davis, General Davis, his influence, what he did for you folks.
Well, then Colonel Davis, overseas in World War II, they went overseas in P-39s in 1944, but they needed planes in 15th Air Force to support the bombers, so they soon switched to the P-47s in the spring of 44. They flew those for a month, June escort, then they switched to P-51s. But Davis's idea on protecting the bombers was, you're with the bombers, you stay with the bombers. Now, quite often German airplanes would come in and attack the bombers, and our planes would go after them and maybe drive them away. Well, in many groups, that German pilot may keep going, and our pilots would keep after him and finally shoot him down. But he may be hundreds of miles away. If that happened very often, this bomb group may not have any airplanes left to protect them, and a new German group could get them. So Davis said, you stick with the bombers, no matter what. If you go after a German airplane and he leaves, let him go, you come back to the bombers. And we develop a reputation of having so many airplanes with the bombers to the target and back. Now, one thing that they said, Davis said, I'm not sure, I didn't hear it myself. He said, you may go after that fellow and shoot him down, and we'll give you a medal for that, but I'm going to court-martial you for leaving the bombers. That's the way he felt about that. So, but and we developed a reputation, and from what I understand, some of the bomb groups like to have the red tails with them.
Yeah. Another question? Right here.
Is the depictions that they showed in the movie about the Tuskegee Airmen, is that pretty much all true?
The movie.
What did you say about that? It's pretty much along the line, yes. Whatnot. They've hyped a little of it, but no, it's basically true, I think.
Next, right here.
This is for Colonel Harvey. Did you get to fly the F-82?
F-82. Did you fly the F-82?
Did you fly the F-82?
F-82?
Yeah, did you fly that?
The twin Mustang.
No, I didn't.
No.
Go ahead.
Is it on?
It's on.
Yeah, quick question. A gentleman that flew the C-119, did you ever fly into Laos and Cambodia and some of those
Black Ops types of missions?
Laos and Cambodia, no.
Okay.
No, we were UDO in Thailand, and we'd fly north over the mountains and then go into North Vietnam. Route 7 coming out of North Vietnam would go down through Laos. We would go up in that area and looking for trucks and then get back.
They used to call that Magia Pass.
What?
Magia Pass is what they used to call it.
The Gia Pass.
Magia.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. Yeah, I was a B-52 pilot, so I remember bombing a lot of that stuff. So thanks.
Anyone else?
Bruce. Hi, how you doing? All right, it's working? All right, cool. I want to know, what would you tell a new pilot that's facing going into pilotage now with no history of aviation and knowing that they're facing a whole different beast in 2020 and 2022? What would you tell them?
What is the question? Someone just going into training?
Somebody's just started in aviation. And
let me tell you about myself. I graduated from high school in June of '42, and I never dreamed of flying. I wanted to be an engineer, that's all. And I graduated in June of '42. I turned 17 that same month. I was too young to get into service. So I got a job until I could get in. And in March of 1943, something happened I hadn't seen before or after. They said if you're 17 and a high school graduate, you can go directly into the flying program. So I took the test for it and was admitted to it. I never thought about flying until then. In fact, I hadn't even driven a car then, see. So, and I was approved in the program, and then I ended up, when I went into service, I turned 18 in June. I went into service in July and went 6 weeks of basic training. And from there, directly to Tuskegee. It was a direct route into the program. And that's how I got into the program. But I never thought about flying until that offer was made.
So I graduated from college in 1980, and my dream was always to fly. And I would have absolutely gone to the military and tried to fly fighters, except I had glasses. And all the surplus pilots from Vietnam were coming home, so there were no opportunities there. The military wasn't hiring. Retiring military pilots from Vietnam were flooding the airlines, so you couldn't get an airline job. And I went out and got a job. I learned I had a private pilot's license while I was in college, but I never gave up. I had this dream to fly these cool airplanes. And I'm a farm kid from Iowa, and you could ask, why am I running around the country telling the story of the Tuskegee Airmen? Because that's the pathway I took to be able to fly Mustangs, Corsairs, Hellcats, B-25s. It's using the lessons and that's why this program resonates so well for me. But today, the opportunities in aviation are greater than they've ever been in history. If you want to fly today or if you want to be a mechanic, the opportunities in aviation are off the chart. And all you've got to do is put your mind to it. It's hard work. It's not easy. Just like George said, he met adversity, but he met it head on and never gave up. And this is the greatest time in the world for a kid who wants to fly. Never have we had the opportunities that we have right now.
You mentioned the opportunities. My last flight, the flight was delayed 2 hours because there was no crew. And that's happened a lot to the airlines now. So the opportunities are there for people who are willing to learn to fly.
It's a great career that used to be, to get into aviation, you had to take a terrible haircut on wages for a long time. Today, the regionals are paying, really good wages for co-pilots. Never in history has it been like this.
That's all I've ever done for my life, 60 years of flying. I never broke anything, and I never got caught. That's a big deal. Well, folks, thank you very much. It's been great. Colonel, thank you, Colonel Hardy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Harvey. Thank you, Doug, as always. Doug's always a help.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, Doug. It's good seeing you, Doug.
for grass, made to feel the joy of each and every blade, between our toes, across our backs, to run over its hills, marvel at its beauty, and find comfort in its stillness. We were made for grass. It's where we battled and celebrated, built monuments, grew families, forged memories, and pushed ourselves farther than ever before. We were made for grass, to care for, nurture, and cultivate. We've always made sure to have a patch of our own, because there's no greater feeling than being on the grass, except leaving it.
join this organization, and it's a constant learning process. And that's another thing that I love about it, because a good pilot is always learning, always.
NETA membership isn't just for pilots. It's for everyone who loves aviation, past, present and future.
We have a lot of members that are not, they're not even pilots. They love the fact that the airplanes still fly, and they share the enthusiasm and the pride that's going on.
It's a place where history comes to life, where the future is sparked by imagination, and where aviation is more than just wings in the air.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day. What else is it for?
I was asked, where do I see NATA going into the future? And I see nowhere but up.
Be a part of it. Join NATA today.
love art by itself. It does it itself. Okay?
Yeah, you're right there with me, though.
Every time I open the hangar door to go flying, I realize that I'm one of the lucky guys doing something that I dreamt of as a kid.
World War II changed the world forever, and forever after. The Fagan Fighters World War II Museum of Granite Falls, Minnesota was created as a tribute to the men and women of the greatest generation, whose incredible sacrifices during World War II won and preserved the freedoms we enjoy today. The Fagan Fighters World War II Museum is the dream, the creation, and the passion of the Fagan family of Granite Falls, Minnesota. Ron and Diane Fagan and their sons Aaron and Evan.
We've taken on a mission to connect the latest generation with the greatest generation because these are events in our history that need to be remembered, and in our case, and in the case of young children, they need to be introduced to. And we feel they're very important and need to be preserved, and that's what we're trying to do.
The mission is to preserve the memory of the heroes of World War II, promote patriotism in today's Americans, and inspire tomorrow's leaders to study and apply history's lessons. It's not enough that these beautiful airplanes are collected and restored. The Fagan Museum restores each of them to flying condition.
I think with everything at the museum, having stuff operational is important because people get to see them, how they were used, and get to hear them start up, and it gives people a better perspective of what these machines were capable of and what they look like in the air.
There are no markers, monuments, or visitor centers in the skies above Europe, the Pacific, or the China, Burma, India theaters of World War II. These airplanes are the monuments. They are timeless portals to the courage and deeds of those who gave their all to preserve all that we hold dear. When the museum's airplanes are not flying, they are displayed in 3 hangars: the trainer hangar, the fighter hangar, and the bomber hangar.
World War II was a worldwide conflict, and unfortunately it's not being taught in our schools anymore. But history always has a tendency to repeat itself, so we got to educate the younger generations about World War II. So learn these experiences from the past so you can apply them in the future to help guide this country in the right direction.
I know the buildings are built to last 250 years. The stories that are contained within these buildings will last just as long. We're connecting some of the battles. The only thing we can connect them with are the ground machines, which many people have a connection to rather than the aircraft.
With the museum opening, I started looking into the military vehicles. Started with the Deuce and a Half. The ambulance, when I had that repainted, we made sure that it matched the 4th Medical Battalion. And the 4th Medical Battalion actually were the first ambulances to arrive on D-Day. The ground vehicles all operate fully functional, and we could start them all up and take off and drive them right now.
The Fagan Fighters World War II Museum doesn't just tell the story of what happened. It is dedicated to preserving the stories of those who lived it, telling us how it happened. Veterans and others are invited to the museum to share their stories firsthand. Their stories are recorded and preserved through the museum's Voices of Valor program.
Let's do our museum around my father, Ray Fagan, and his World War II experiences. The first campaign medal he got was Normandy invasion. Second campaign medal he got was Liberation of Paris. And the third campaign medal he got was the Battle of the Bulge. He says you can't imagine how terrible it was.
We decided to make our collection a real museum when people referred to it as such. We opened the museum doors directly after our air show in 2012, so the date was June 17th, 2012.
The Fagan Fighters World War II Museum puts its collection in context for visitors by using original murals, sculptures, paintings, photographic collections, and other fine art to tell the story of epic events such as D-Day, June 6, 1944. This rail car, which anchors the museum's Holocaust exhibit, was found after years of searching in Germany and brought here so that no generation will ever forget the horror of the Holocaust or the memories of those who were lost.
When the Germans marched in, I was 7 years old. When I was liberated in January 18, 1945, I was 8 years old. And these are some of the things I remember.
The best single teacher we have about the lessons of the Holocaust are survivors. And for years, they've been the most important teachers. Sadly, as historian Deborah Lipstadt would say, the tyranny of biology means we have fewer and fewer survivors to speak. Memorials, and that's almost too static a term, opportunities to learn, like this exhibit, which opens people's eyes to the horrors of the Holocaust, are becoming ever more important in the absence of survivors. So what the Fagans have done here with their exhibit is to create a wonderful, remarkable learning opportunity for people of southwestern Minnesota, entire state, upper Midwest, and I know people coming from all over the world in learning about the Holocaust through this specific lens. So we thank the Fagans for their generosity of spirit, their vision, and their commitment to Holocaust education as they teach about the Second World War.
We're very happy to call the JCRC friends. They have visited the museum a number of times. Were very helpful in our Holocaust exhibit when we were building that at Split Rock Studios. We are thrilled to be the recipient of their yearly award.
Someday, sooner than we'd like, the headline will read, "Last World War II Veteran Dies." When that day comes, how will we connect the greatest generation with the latest generation? Restoring these things to their original power and function, and capturing the stories of those members of the greatest generation who are still with us, offers not only a portal to the past, but an immortal connection to America's future generations.
Keep repeating that you'll never fall in love. And Everybody keeps retreating, but you can't seem to get enough. Let my love open the door. Let my love open the door. Let my love open the door to your heart. Let my love open the door. Let my love open the door. Let my love open the door to your heart.
Today we are particularly focusing on our Vietnam vets and aircrafts with General Brady's presentation. We do still have some of our t-shirts with the aircraft art on the front and sweatshirts with that same art on the back. We also do have some of our Vietnam shirts, Vietnam aircraft on some of our Hawaiian shirts. This is our miscellany rack with things that you never knew that you needed, like our earbuds, our travel kits, spin sockets, camera lenses, brand new bandanas, and a wonderful tie with the very subtle art with the Warbirds of America logo. We even have wallets this year. We have a cooling scarf. One of our new products this year is a koozie that includes a magnet on the back. So you can attach your koozie there on your refrigerator or some other metal surface, and it is available whenever you are ready for it.
A state of war exists between us.
A date which will live in infamy.
I am certain the right will prevail.
People call the World War II veterans the greatest generation. But all I remember is that 50% of my original squadron were either killed or became prisoners of war. I had two close friends in my squadron, Eddie Simpson and Jim Browning. They were both killed in action. I thought so much of them that I named my son after them. James Edward Anderson. I'm Colonel Bud Anderson, executive producer of the American War Horse film. This film is important because it tells us what it was like to lose friends, what it was like wondering whether you're going to make it through the day. This film will let us learn from the mistakes made in the past. Imagine if we had not built the P-51. It was an amazing airplane, head and shoulders above them all. It played a significant part in the winning of the air battles in World War II. We had to overcome Hitler and destroy the Luftwaffe. We will be using authentic historical airplanes to reenact dogfights. I will be briefing the pilots, and it will be the closest we can possibly get to the real thing.
Welcome to the Warbirds store. We have a wide array of merchandise, starting with our posters and prints. This year we're highlighting the anniversary of the U.S. Air Force as they celebrate 75 years. We do have some of the Air Force sweatshirts still available. We also have a brand new t-shirt set with the drawings of a local artist who does very detailed drawings of the individual aircraft. And then we have t-shirts to match them. If you buy a t-shirt and a print together, you get a $5 discount. We have our mugs back here. We do have a new set of glassware, and this year we have pint glasses, rocks glasses, and shot glasses.